Thank you, Tobin, and the entire AngelMD team, and to you all for allowing me the privilege to speak to you today. If we can have our first slide, just a quick background about myself. As Tobin indicated, I sort of grew up outside of healthcare. My career began outside, and however, for the last 10 years, have been focused on taking some of the lessons learned from the previous few trimesters of my career and applying it to healthcare. Symbotix is a management consulting firm, and we've got a broad array of offerings. We're second generation. We originally started as a corporate restructuring firm, and we did Fortune 100s. And interestingly enough, we would restructure Fortune 100s when they were doing well, which was fun, because when you're restructuring and things are dire, it's not fun. You're cutting people and you're throwing muscle away, and that's certainly no fun. So today, I'm going to sort of take a different tack, and yesterday was awesome. I mean, wasn't yesterday unbelievable, right? The speakers, the energy, and certainly the content and the topics, clearly inspiring. But let's take a quick look from Startup Health's perspective, their view, on sort of the state of investments. And as Tobin indicated so eloquently, there's lots of money going into things, right? And of course, a quick overview of the slide here, you'd see the usual suspects in terms of the investments and so on, but to focus on a few elements, you'll see, of course, medical devices sort of emerging and growing in the top 10 relative to other positions, which is interesting. And of course, yesterday we spent a lot of time looking at some very cool advancements and so on. If you'll allow me, for most of today, my pitch today, I'll focus on the other side of the world, right? That being the digitization or the information element of what we're all hoping, and one would expect after $30 billion annually, or actually $30 billion over the last couple of years, but a record year last year, and quarter over quarter, the trajectory looks still very positive. But all of this money, right, being spent on what's called digital health or the healthcare space. And certainly advancements in medical devices are clearly making strides. Right? I mean, we've developed the ability to make reliable and efficient, targeted, precise changes to the genome of living cells. I mean, really unbelievable. Through genetics, the human genome is finally becoming part of the decision process towards our quest. And I know you all have been working hard for this for many years, towards personalized medicine, right? So we're just on the threshold, in my opinion, of actually getting there. It's unbelievable. Another example I'd like to throw out is something that Symbotix is involved in with a collaborative at North Carolina State University's engineering department. They call themselves ASSIST. And through a collaboration, they're working with the NSF, National Science Foundation, and the DoD. They're working on wearables that are self-powered. Right, self-powered wearables, and these things are like almost clear as tape, and they're integrating them into fabrics and so on. In this instance, the use case we're working on is to help the DoD have our warfighters have much more intuition, and people monitoring them from remote positions, intuition on what's going on with regards to stress, trauma, etc. Unbelievable stuff. Right. The rest of the chart, you'll see the other 10, you'll see some, again, I mentioned the usual suspects, and that's where we're going to focus a little bit more today on the information element, the HIT concept. And boy, I hate that term. In fact, actually, all my clients, after I leave the engagement, hate that term as well, because I prove it to them that it is a money pit, and yet, indeed, has not, with regards to the changes that Tobin opened yesterday, talked about. We're not disrupted. Right? $30 billion dollars of money available, great solutions, incredible advancements, and we're not there yet. Right? So one would submit, right, that the business, how business is conducted of healthcare is completely broken. Right? And if I can throw the rest of my slides away, I would love to have a debate right now with someone in the room that would like to talk about that. But you all are probably mostly clinical practitioners, and I know you guys are feeling the pain as well in that regard. You don't have the information you need to make better decisions or to effect better care or to make better use of your time with regards to delivering that care. And it's not a lack of spending, right? $3.5 trillion annually in our industry, right? A third of that, from many studies, are indicated as being wasted. A third of a $3.5 trillion investment being wasted, right? But you see things like a former client was spending $30 million on a revenue cycle system with the company with the big E in front of it. And, you know, I'm saying, God, you could do it for nothing. You got the information, synthesize it, and deliver it. It's basically financials. And, of course, a little CRM to understand the relationship with your consumer. You know, that you got that information in your bowels. You got those assets there. Why are you spending $30 million? Oh, by the way, just as a sidebar, that $30 million was helping that big E company develop that revenue cycle application for which they're probably selling to your health systems today. Again, probably for another $30 million. It's criminal. Right? And they're just using them as an example. I really don't have a vendetta against them, but this is really indicative of what's going on in the HIT world. Lots of money being spent, right? You're getting lots of different solutions out there for patient engagement, for patient flow, for other information, for ability for the nurses to be more effective, operating room optimization and so on. But they're all separate applications, right? And they don't talk to themselves. They don't operate the same way. And what you wind up is a highly siloed environment, right, with lots of money and applications and so on going forth, right? But there's not a lot of money being spent, in our opinion, in our research and our experiences, in really adopting new operating models. Right? We would recommend that this is the way to go. Right? The money is being spent in those HIT applications, and we find ourselves working with C-suite players and some of the largest and most renowned organizations in the country, very frustrated. You know, Ted, I'm spending a lot of money on this stuff. I've got a lot of IT stuff coming in. Isn't that the answer? This digital thing, I'm reading the McKinsey report and stuff like that. Isn't this supposed to be the answer? Why am I not seeing returns? In fact, many of them are telling me their net operating margins are declining precipitously. Right? They're bleeding cash. So lots of money being spent on good things, and certainly some clearly advantages that we are seeing, but not enough in terms of changing the relationship between the industry and its intended consumer. Right? The consumer doesn't even want to get involved. There's a lot of what we used to call apathy and so on and so forth. Right now it's almost disgust because of the political winds and so on. Well, we won't go there for sure, right? But it's not working. And again, we would submit to you that the neglect of the operating models, the new operating models that allow businesses to perhaps reform over time, right, and create efficiencies within the enterprise. And I'll use the word that was used yesterday by Dr. Ling. Is he here today? Because I want to, yeah, you inspired me, my friend, as in many ways, right? And, you know, he used the word capabilities. I almost stood up and started cheering because that's what we talk about. Creating capabilities. Don't buy an application to do something. Create enterprise capabilities, right? And that will help you to understand and help you assemble through a visionary process, a new operating model that allows you to do things that you want. You want to collaborate better with your continuum. You want to improve your relationship with your value chain. You certainly want to understand and create sticky relationships with your consumers. I don't like the word patient, so consumer and patient, right? So I think patient is too passive as a consumer. So I hope I'm not offending anyone. But anyway, the point is we believe that there's neglect at the business operating model level. Right? So what we did was, let's say we went out to prove our beliefs, because we don't know what we don't know. So almost 7 years ago now, we started, and I founded an organization called the Healthcare Industry Transformation Project. And the HITP group is a very unique innovation ecosystem. I've had the good fortune of meeting and working with and working for some very, very intelligent, incredibly brilliant senior executive C-suite players, again, from some brands that you would recognize right off the bat. And, of course, respect. I mean, these folks are well-renowned for their outcomes and their ability to, again, create that brand equity and so on through their names and through their relationships with others and so on. But we created a situation where we convene 25 to 40 of them annually, and we've done that annually since 2011, and pulled them together and run them through what we call a design shop exercise. And the theory was this: look, if we can learn from you guys, from your lens, what you're dealing with on a daily basis, right? What are your challenges, right? We as a group can perhaps, based on an agreed agenda before the meeting, we can kind of distill down, right, through shared learning, group learning. Of course, we have a number of exercises that get people design thinking exercises, systems thinking exercises, get people thinking a little differently, but we can come out with a shared vision on what will work as a new solution. And so again, we've done this for the last 7 years, and we've come out with a number of great research results. Oh, by the way, we've also pulled in information from the outside, not just our experiences beyond the healthcare industry. So we've worked with Bain & Company, we've worked with McKinsey, we've had a long-standing relationship, and thank goodness for the MIT Sloan School for Center for Information Systems Research, who've been a big partner of ours over the years. And through the research, we've looked at hundreds of companies outside of healthcare. We looked at those that didn't make it and are struggling, right? Similar to what's going on as we would reflect with regards to healthcare. And we looked at those that have transcended multiple industry transformations in their respective domains, right? You would know the brands, Intel, IBM, Ford Motor Company, and so on, right? Those kind of organizations that come to mind. New companies like Apple and Amazon and so on. How have these organizations been able to not only transcend industry change, adopt new technology, in fact, actually create new technology and stimulate new markets, right? It's operating models. So as a group, we worked on that and we distilled it down over time, and we came down to an understanding of what were the specific elements, what were those principles, right, that allowed those companies that we decided were the stalwarts, if you will, again in their respective domains, what were the consistent characteristics that really identified and predisposed them to continued success, to continued ability to create markets, to continued ability to actually create the relationship with consumers that is so powerful, right, unbreakable in many cases, right? What were those elements? And we came up with 5 enterprise capabilities that these organizations all shared on a consistent basis. First one is integration, right? Not just data integration, albeit very important, right? But integration, the ability to integrate it between departments and service lines and with partners and so on and so forth, just to be able to integrate. Share information, share process orientation, share patients and consumers, et cetera, et cetera. All right? The second one is information management. It knocks me out. It knocks me out that organizations would spend tens of millions of dollars on these great analytics platforms. They're unbelievable, right? You got Watson, and I'm a former IBMer, that was mentioned earlier, and so on. So I have nothing against IBM, but you got Watson, which is a really good tool, and so on and so forth. People spending lots of money on that, but yet they're bleeding, their operating margins, and so on and so forth. And because they're not able to feed these systems, they're not able to manage their information assets and give them into the analytic platforms, right? Integrate them into the analytic platforms, and then manage their information assets as an asset, as opposed to a stumbling block or a challenge. The third thing is performance management. Third out of five of the enterprise capability is performance management. Right? It's the ability to understand what's going on in your business, make some adjustments, and improve business performance. Right? Pretty basic. A little anecdote here. A couple of C-suite executives that we've worked with in the past have sat me down and said, Ted, look, we've got this bundled arrangement, with COPD and knee and hip replacements and cancer oncology. We got these bundle arrangements, and we want to optimize the opportunity that we have with our insurance payer under these contracts and arrangements. I said, absolutely, no problem. So you go to the whiteboard and you start to say, okay, so first thing I would recommend, board of directors, let's take a look at your current performance so we can start to map a way forward. The room gets quiet. And you're like, well, wait a minute, you don't know what your current performance is? No, we have no idea. We have no information. And you have to go to 16 different departments and then synthesize it all. And by the time that happens, 30 or 80 days have gone by. It's untenable. It's untenable. And so performance management was the third. The fourth out of the 5 enterprise capabilities that identified these organizations of high performance is collaboration. The ability to have your organization operate virtually outside the 4 walls of your enterprise. Your people, your process, your technology, your information, your consumers, right? It's a team sport, healthcare, right? I mean, as a consumer, you don't go to one person and get everything fixed. It doesn't happen. Or everything identified or diagnosed, it doesn't happen, right? So it's a team sport. If you're not good at collaboration in healthcare, clearly you're not going to be good in healthcare, right? And again, this is pulling from success outside of healthcare. The fifth of the enterprise capabilities that we've identified is something we call business event management. Right? The business event management is really a culmination of all the things that I just mentioned earlier. Right? The information integration, the ability to understand performance, the ability to, to share and so on. Right? And event management is the mathematical patterns, right, that occur in data and transactions that are about to lead to something. right? And of course, we call it AI nowadays, but this has been around a long time, called complex event processing out of Stanford way back when, right? Right? You know complex event processing? All right, you're laughing at it, or?
No, how long the term is.
Oh, yes, yeah, complex event processing. It's a big one, absolutely, yeah. But anyway, so complex event processing allows you to understand what's about to happen. And indeed, some of our HITP clients, we've actually taken them to the point where they're able to influence clinical outcomes. Influence the clinical outcomes. Not, take a look afterwards, analyze it, and then go back and try to, influence evidence-based, which takes 7 years and so on. Not do that, but influence what's about to happen at the bedside, in real time. Right? We've been able to do that successfully. Right, through complex event processing, or what we call event management. So we understand the situation a lot better now. We've had some successes, and we've kind of taken this thing forward. But to sort of summarize what's been going on with regards to the challenges that are faced today, this chart would indicate the complexity and the rate of change continues to grow. When I talk about complexity, let's talk about something called technology debt. Right? Most of my customers, their CIO would sit down, would take a look at their P&L and so on and so forth. Typically, 78 to 84% of the IT spends are locked into what's called lights on. Right? Fixed costs associated with managing 200, 300 applications that don't speak to each other, that don't operate the same way, that require specialized training and maintenance, costs to integrate and so on, challenges to integrate, timing issues. Right? Technology debt is a big anchor, and most of the industries have shed that through the use of some very easily adopted technology. And again, to quote Dr. Ling, it ain't that hard. It ain't that hard. Right? Another example of complexity, and I got so ticked off, I was going to use a bad word, but I got so ticked off that on Twitter the other day I saw the ONC come out and say, oh my gosh, we got an interoperability success. We held a 4-day meeting with 20 executives. I looked at the names, brilliant people, many of which I know, smart guys, most of them practitioners, right? So I'm thinking, why are you there for 4 days? Anyway, and they talked about, and they came out with a way to integrate a couple of HL7 messages. Now, HL7 is a standard. I'm not kidding you. Find the tweet. If you go out and follow me, find the tweet. Right. HL7 is a standard, and they spend 4 days mapping on a piece of paper, and they put 12 pages together on how this could be accomplished. If my team came to me and told me it would take more than 12 hours to integrate an HL7 message, they'd be gone. I'd find somebody else, probably through Jeffrey Ling. But, because he's got his sources, some probably high-powered people. Anyway, the point is the complexity is not necessary. It's actually nonsense. So if your health system tells you they can't integrate EHRs, or we have to make a decision whether it's Athena or it's Cerner or it's Epic, tell them it's a bunch of hoo-ha, because it is. It's a bunch of BS. It is not true. You don't have to change. You can have as many EHRs as you want. In fact, actually, what you want to do is abstract it down, right, and get some interfaces to those practitioners that want the information how they want it. They don't want all the other stuff. Right? Most of the stuff they want is probably hidden in the middle of one of these little screens on these EHR systems, because they're designed to get paid, not to deliver care, in my opinion. But anyway, and start to reduce the complexity so that not only can you respond to the rate of change, right? Not only can you respond to the rate of change, but you can also actually start to effect change. Right? Start to actually create change and be the impetus, be the stimulator of this transformation or this disruption that's we so dearly have been waiting for. All of this money, it's very frustrating in that financial services and others, it seems to be that it's more important to make more money, which is kind of cool because you're all here to make money, and I don't, there's no problem with that. I like to make money as well, but it seems to be a social priority more so than healthcare, which is why I believe we've made this much progress in the other industries. I want to travel easier, I want better hospitality, I want more information about my purchases and so on in retail. Right? So the information's available to people who need to make the decision in full context, in 360, right, about when I need it and how I need it as a consumer. And think of anybody in the healthcare value chain as a consumer, including the patient. Right? So reducing the complexity, chipping away at that technology debt, which is that anchor, repurposing those monies to things that will really drive change is really the formula that we would suggest. And again, we're not just kind of preaching this out of a textbook. We've gone back and it does work. Right? The challenge that we find here is that taking the leap from one business model to the other really isn't just about the technology debt, which is sincerely a major problem. It's about all the other factors. In fact, we had a speaker yesterday from the Executive Club of Chicago. I don't know if she's here today. Ms. Dutra, are you here? No? Okay, well, oh, you are. Awesome. Awesome, right? Right on target. There's power struggles. There's political issues. Shocking, right? There's all kinds of stuff going on between service lines and right? And the cultural issues, I will promise you, are more challenging than the technology, because technology issues are easy. In fact, actually, I think the cultural challenges make the technology as the scapegoat, so nobody kind of peeks behind the curtain and figures out what's really wrong. I mean, I'm serious, right? It's kind of funny. It is actually humorous when you take an objective look at it. But when you're in the heat of the moment and you're sitting there, you're telling the president or the chief executive or the board of trustees of a major health system, multi-billion-dollar health, this is the problem. They sit there scratching their head and say, "Are you effing kidding me?" No, I'm not kidding you. This is what's going on. So the deal is, when you try to make these changes in the leaps between the S-curves, you need to really take a step back and map out. And we suggest sort of a stair-stepped approach. We call this a time value model, where not only are you actually starting to reduce your technology footprint and simplify things so that information flow is easy across all value chain participants, everybody in the continuum, including the consumer. Right? Again, that's the easy part. But then you start to win the hearts and minds of the people in the organization and get them excited. 2 of our 5 organizations that we just reinvented over the last 7 years, and we reinvent organizations typically at the large enterprise level, and we also work with smaller organizations, but at the large enterprise level we reinvent. But 2 out of the 5 actually stood up within their own enterprise on this platform, their own digital factories, where they're coming up with ideas, or the clinical practitioners have these unbelievable spark transformations. Not the full answer, but we believe, that cliche that it's the ripple in the pond. Once you've cleared the decks, take the guns and knives away from people who blame stuff like information as the problem, right? And you get them on the bandwagon, then they're behind it because it's their ideas. In fact, actually, an interesting epiphany occurs oftentimes in our executives, and the annual planning process, the strategic plan at the hospital level is always a battle, right? Talking about some of those cultural challenges, always a fight, and so in order to not cause any additional friction, what they do is they create a strategic plan that's got everything on it. Patient safety, do this, do that, we're going to acquire, we're going to be acquired, we're going to buy this, we're going to have sticky relationships, or improve this, we're going to do this, we're going to do Epic, we're going to, and you look at the plan, you're like, really? And the reason why they do that is it's a compromise, right? When you start to get down to 90-day cycles, people stop fighting because they know, hey, I'm going to give it a good shot, and if I don't get in on this next cycle, it's only the next 90 days that I have to wait. And then there's more collaboration amongst the senior executives, and the service lines actually start to help themselves. This really happens, right? But you have to be methodical about it. You have to actually build that bridge across what we call the period of discontinuity, which is where all this bad stuff happens. Right? If you do that, you will not only mimic what's occurred in other industries, but you'll also see unbelievable advancements within your enterprise and all of those great digital innovations, whether it be devices, more importantly, information elements, like machine learning at the point of care. Again, like the genome at the point of care and decision processes. All that stuff flows freely, right? And then you get on with doing what you do best, and that's improving your health of your patient and the wellness of your patients. The challenge is where we have been, and this is where we have just done a pivot in the last year. Actually, just 2017 was a pivot year for us in this quest to find and do more to help create this spark, is that one enterprise doesn't have the full authority to effect change across an entire community, or an ecosystem, if you will, right? Back in 2011, 2 folks that are quoted at the bottom of this chart here, the people in the back might not be able to see it, but they wrote a paper called Collective Impact. And it talks about the necessary elements and ingredients that have to come to bear to effect change on complex social issues. And healthcare would probably fit into that category. And Collective Impact says, hey, if you collaborate, right, you can accelerate the process of assimilating new ideas and fail fast. It's not just a cliche. You can actually get in there, this doesn't work. That's okay, not too bad. Next 90 cycle, we'll get it right. All right, so now you get into that cycle but you need to include others from outside the enterprise. So what we've been lucky to find recently in North Carolina, I was going to say here in North Carolina, I'm still not adjusted to the time, so let's see, it's almost 1 o'clock. But we ran into a number of folks in North Carolina called DHIT, Digital Health Impact and Transformation. Brilliant guys, very nice people, very ebullient in their desires and so on, but they're looking to create an ecosystem, and I put the word symbiosis in there because they're basically creating in conference rooms shared interest amongst North Carolina State DHHS, the North Carolina Blue Cross Blue Shield, University of North Carolina, Duke, Novant, a number of the big health systems, Wake Forest Baptist, all the big players and consumers, and the venture side, the money side, where all these great ideas are coming from, the incredible energies from entrepreneurial spirit and new ideas, new ways of thinking, all kind of pulled together, and I've been pulled into, had the privilege of being pulled into, and now lead some of these workshops where we're doing it in a kind of on a whiteboard, and it's inspiring, right? But what we said was, look, let's take it to the next level. Let's start to apply some technology, and if we're actually going to accelerate digital health, let's use digital health. All right? So many of you may have heard that there have been some major breakthroughs in what's called semantic interoperability. And semantics, of course, is the real holy grail in healthcare. People talk about, well, this doesn't talk to that, and I need a different EHR, and all the stuff I highlighted earlier. It comes down to the matter of semantics. Can the applications speak to themselves? Right? Can they work with themselves? I had the good fortune of knowing a number of these fellows that have actually created a number of the key elements of the technology that runs the internet. Right? There's something called RDF, there's something called OWL, there's something called Sparkle. And these fellows are the ones that developed this stuff, some of which were former IBMers. And they came together and formed a company called Cambridge Semantics, of course, out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. And their semantic fabric is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You lay it down, and in a very elastic and very lightweight manner, you can fix one problem, or you can fix the enterprise problem. And if you cloud it, again, that use of elasticity, right, is very cost-effective and fast. It doesn't take a long time to fix this kind of stuff. All right, so let's say we apply this to what's been going on with regards to a trend in healthcare, where there's an increasing investment in cloud technologies. And I'll take a little step back, and I'll give you a quick input on my view on cloud technologies. Prior to last year, maybe, thereabouts, a year or so, most of the investments in cloud technology have been sort of large enterprises just outsourcing servers and machines and wires and buttons and so on. And I guess that's okay. Right? And there's a slight reduction in G&A. It's a little complex to manage because your stuff's no longer on site and so on. We used to call it outsourcing, so the marketing guys created a new word called clouding. Right? So, but what we'd like to suggest is to take those investments in cloud technology and create a collaboration that's online. Right? So not only are we just in the whiteboards designing solutions through some effective design sessions, but let's have all of the information in the same space so that people can share and grow and learn and prototype and test and use and test and better and improve on a continuous basis. No more will the community, right, hopefully North Carolina, which is, again, my hometown, have to worry about, hey, we can't share patient information for Medicaid, diabetics. Why? Well, we're a rural hospital. Well, just go on to the cloud. Go on to the North Carolina Collaboration Cloud. It's there, right? I'm a physician network out in North Carolina, and I want to be able to, analyze some information, de-identified, but is it available? Sure. There's an interface. Go on to the cloud. It's there. And it's actually being used today to effectuate transactions in care and wellness of these people. Right? I mean, this isn't hard stuff. It's not hard stuff. And we're working on it. So we believe that by bringing in people with a shared vision, right, a shared interest, that being literally the people in the community, not across the country, because we're kind of bringing this down now. We're going to start small, only one state, not too bad, right? And let's kind of create this ecosystem in a real sense, right, by taking all of the traction issues away. Information sharing, collaboration, the ability to actually prototype. And so I'm going to take you through, it's a little bit of an eye chart, but in the information technology world, there's an architecture element that is called Stax. You probably all know this already, but you stack stuff in IT world. So this chart sort of should look like a three-dimensional. It's really not appearing that way, but the gray boxes is basically your policy and security, which is very important. But through B2B gateways, that blue section really starts to talk about the semantic interoperability elements that everybody gets to share, right, if you get onto this cloud. So now you don't have to worry about your hospital system or your insurance company investing in semantic technologies and cleaning up their assets and so on. You just start to migrate over here to this cloud, which could be commonly shared. We haven't decided the pricing structure. We don't want to own it. We just want to create it, right? Just let people get on it. And once you allow them to take their infrastructure outsources and say, oh, by the way, not only are servers being outsourced, but now you're able to share information within your enterprise at the same time for the same price. Holy cow, really? Yeah, sure. So now moving up the stack, and oh, by the way, while you're there sharing information with your trading partners in a secure fashion, right, and only the ones you select, of course, obviously everything's compartmentalized, right, we'll bring in the digital innovation community and what we like to call, the marketplace, the digital innovation marketplace. That also has a sandbox. And I put specific in that sandbox called blockchain because that's one thing that is already stood up. We have a blockchain prototype going on one of our small clouds that's set up right, between two of the players that are becoming constituents of this whole concept. And they were like, well, we want to get a blockchain thing going on. And so we don't know much about it. So, okay, fine, just stand up, try it. Just go in there and do it. What do you mean go in and do it? Just do it. Log into this thing and start, they were working on eligibility, improving the inefficiencies in eligibility. Yes, an eligibility check is very inefficient. But the point is, it's not that hard. The top element really kind of ties things off here. Again, in an architectural sense, at the top layer is where you have your analytics, your human interfaces, where people can actually obtain access to the information. And so there's a single sign-on for everybody. Of course, all looking at the same data sets, right, that you have access to. But it's semantically meaningful to the reader. So if I'm a layperson, right, I'm reading my health in words that I understand instead of explanation of benefits, which is a misnomer. Clearly. Right? I mean, who came up with that, right? Unbelievable. And I've been an executive of a couple of blues, so I would always get in trouble by trying to change that. Explanation of benefit doesn't mean anything. But the point is you have a single sign-on. You don't have to worry. You get onto one. It's like logging onto Twitter, and I want to check my health. And by the way, think about things in the future, right? Because all of these wearables that we currently have today, we don't have to wait for the NSF Assist project to complete, right? But the wearables today can be tracked and monitored via this cloud very simply and organized and synthesized in a secure fashion. And if indeed you allow your primary care physician to review them on a monthly basis, maybe Blue Cross Blue Shield will help you out with your premiums because you're a pre-diabetic and you're working out, or you're a XYZ and you're doing certain things, or your behaviors are now being recognized and it's on the positive side of behavior, and now you're able to get, some different services and or costs that you may or may not have been able to get in the past. It could be this could be happening within a year, and we're going to hope it's going to be sooner than that. But this is the kind of stuff that you can get on, and then in a stair-step fashion, within a community, create a model that may not fix everything, right? But we believe, truly in our hearts, we believe that this indeed can become the spark of healthcare transformation, and that is our quest. That is what we intend to keep doing and become further informed through groups like this, through the efforts of Tobin and his team, through the efforts of all you guys individually, and through all of success and the information sharing and interest, hopefully, that you would be willing to talk with me about after this presentation. I'd be more than glad to take any questions if there are any, but I do wish to thank you for your time and attention this morning. Thank you. Question? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I really appreciate your talk. Thank you so much. That's a great overview.
Thank you.
I've been researching this field. I'm a member of the Mid-American Angels in Kansas City. And on my own, I've been researching this field myself, these questions for about the last 3 or 4 years. And I want to, and the concept of an information share data, you know, scientifically as well as medically. But I've had the privilege of attending many meetings at the National Academy of Medicine that are dealing with the problem of high error rates in diagnostics that was discovered back around 1900, or I'm sorry, around 2000. And they're leading to, they're making a mistake that, if I may say, the entire industry is still making the same mistake. And that is that they are consulting legacy players to find solutions. And Clayton Christensen, in his book, calls for not disruptive technology, but disruptive business models. And I think it's so hard to understand the implications of that. I'll get right to the point. What's missing from healthcare, interestingly enough, is the consumer.
Yes.
There's no question about that. The single organizing principle for all data that would allow it to be organized is around the individual patient.
Love it.
The individual consumer.
Personalized, absolutely.
And it has to be the consumer, not the patient. This is where EHRs are totally off the mark, because the only people who collect, on whose data is collected in electronic medical records are sick people.
Correct.
And so we're not even understanding the healthy. And yet, the National Institute of Health would love to study healthy people. Why aren't they getting sick? And so we need to put together some kind of new information infrastructure that is radically different. And I would like to suggest that even some of the legacy players that the C-suite people that you may be talking to, are perhaps the wrong people as well. A lot of people say to me that some big company is going to solve the problem here. Google or Watson or
Facebook,
Microsoft.
Amazon, yeah.
Yeah, Amazon. And I actually feel that this is a role for an angel investment, for a very small startup that is starting in a different way with a different solution. And I think that's actually the best. So I'm sorry I can't put that into a question form, but I just...
Well, I appreciate the observation. What is your name, sir? I can't see. The light is right in my eye. What is your name?
John Birch.
John, thank you very much. And next time I present, I would like you on the stage with me. 'Cause other questions? I've got a 2-minute thing here, but I'm going to be around, obviously, if you have any questions, or if you want to yell at me for what I said, that's fine too.
God, Ted.
Happens a lot. So thank you very much again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ted.